we're talking about The Irishman today, Leonard, and I was wondering, how did you get enlisted for The Irishman?
Well, I worked several times with Sandy Powell and another guy, David Davidson, and they contacted me and said, "Would I, make the clothes for it?" Simple as that. You sit down and the phone goes, and then away I go. But Sandy and I had worked 2 or 3 times previously.
On The Wolf of Wall Street one?
Wolf of Wall Street, Shutter Island, and something else that I can't remember.
I cut Nick off halfway through, and we were just talking about how this film goes through about 4 different decades. That must have been a challenge for you to make suits that kind of clearly denotes the passing of time, or was it a challenge?
Not necessarily a challenge. It's just a matter of moving a seam here or there. Lowering a lapel, widening, lowering a gorge, widening the lapel, widening the shoulders. Some of the trousers were kind of interesting, where we had the very, very high-rise trousers and the low inside leg on some of them. In fact, I was looking the other day. I have a list. I have a pile, really, of movie suits that I've made, the patterns for the guys, and it's kind of my show-off thing when people come, "Oh, take a look at this." And so I've got 3 or 4 different eras for Pacino, and I think only 2 for De Niro, and a few for Pesci as well for that movie. And I cut different patterns for each one because I didn't just want to mark it on the pattern, because that's open to mistake. So I went to the bother of new patterns for it, for each one.
Interesting. Ken, you're in New York, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, actually. Yeah.
Right. So I guess you can take a trip down to Leonard's place down there and have a look at some of the patterns anytime soon.
I'm saving up so I can pay Leonard to visit.
I'm going to start charging for looking at them, though.
Oh. Leonard, I'm a huge fan of your work. I do have a question, actually. When you're tailoring for a period piece like this, and you have to get it kind of to look right for that time period, whether it's the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. When you're trying to get that look, but you're working with the actor's body, with the lapel and the shoulders and the gorge height and all that, are you really strict to that time period, or do you alter the pattern a little bit to better fit the human being?
No, we tried to keep to the era. I mean, Sandy is meticulous. When we did Wolf of Wall Street, we were widening the shoulders by 1/8 of an inch when we went from one decade into the next, with a year or 2 apart. And so she's very strict on and she says that Scorsese is as well. Scorsese apparently picks everything up. So she says, we can't cheat, we can't do this, we can't do that, because he'll see it, and then it reverberates down to everybody. So while we obviously fit the balance and everything for that particular actor, we really try and work very hard to keep to the era in which the movie is being shot.
Interesting. Nick, on your site, I plowed through all the articles. I think there must be up to about 7 or 8 different outfits. Were there any ones that really stood out for you and you wanted to ask Leonard about?
Well, there was one that I think gets one of the biggest fashion highlights of the movie is whenever we catch up with Robert De Niro's character Frank, and I think it's about 1960, and he's wearing this golden suit that I really, it just for me it stood out as one of his highlights, and I think it was also like the highlight of his career as well, the one where he's wearing the Teamster pin on the lapel. And I was just curious to about that cloth, if that was meant to be, a significant sartorial moment for him, and what would have went into creating that suit.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a particular sartorial moment. Sometimes they turn out like that just by the shading of the shape of the fabric more than anything else. It was difficult to find the fabrics because, in fact, I went to California 2 or 3 times to fit Pacino on, and in between that, Sandy and I would go to these warehouses full of clothes to try and find clothes that might fit for some of these actors and some of the others in the era. And what was difficult was finding things that had a type of sheen to it. We ended up with, for Pacino, 3 or 4 different fabrics that were polyester. I mean, it made you cringe as you were cutting them out. It felt so bad, but it was of the era and it had the look. And it's the same that suit that you're talking about. I think that had a little bit of polyester, or I'm not quite sure, it may have had some mohair in it as well.
Okay. Yeah, because there is definitely that sheen that really comes through on screen. And yeah, that for me, that was a standout. And I think also from around that same time, he wears a brown suit with a fleck to it. And I always like that fleck. I feel like that you only really see that in 50s and 60s era tailoring. So I was curious too how hard it was to find that cloth.
That cloth, I actually think that was a suit that they found, because I did a lot of alterations for particularly for De Niro for that movie. And I'm pretty sure that one was something that they found at one of these warehouses that I just altered for him.
Nice.
I ripped these things apart. It wasn't just altering. I took shoulders out, collars off, sleeves off, put the whole thing together in order to keep the style, but to make it to fit De Niro, which is going back to the other question.
That's interesting. And were you mainly just working with Pacino, De Niro, and Pesci, or some of the other guys like?
No, I did. Oh gosh, I wrote it down and I didn't pick it up. There's a guy called some Italian comic, Mana.
Oh, he plays Crazy Joe, I think.
Joe Gallo.
Ray Romano. And there was one other guy whose name I can't remember. There was 6 of them. But there was only one suit for Ray Romano, and that was sort of the wedding suit, which is kind of interesting. It was a bright blue with a black velvet, I think it was a black velvet collar or lapel, and all the groomsmen had the similar suits on. I made his, and the groomsmen's were all made at a cheaper factory.
I guess that's supposed to be 1975. So
I think it was somewhere around there.
Well, because that scene comes straight after the killing of Hoffa, right? So you have that, and then you pan to the wedding, and that is also the first time you hear music, I think, for about 25 minutes. So the whole lead up to that event where he kills Hoffa, it's kind of like this deathly silence. I mean, there's music pumping all the way through, some great nostalgic tunes, and then when it leads up, it has that kind of eeriness to it where not a lot seems to be happening, but everything's happening at the same time. And those blue suits, those kind of powder blue suits, really make that entrance. So yeah, that was a big moment.
He was a funny guy too, Ray Romano. They flew me out to Los Angeles to do a fitting there for him, and he was just, I don't know if you've ever seen that TV show, I Love Raymond, I think it's called, where he's just very laid back and he's throwing sort of jokes out or saying things offhand. That's what the guy's like in real life. I mean, it was hilarious. Standing there for like 45 minutes working with him, because it was one joke or one story after another. Apparently it's not jokes for comics, it's more they manipulate a story so that it sounds funny. He was very good at it. And
did you go down on set as well as visiting the actors at their homes? No,
never did. No, I saw them some came up here. Harvey Keitel, that's the other guy I made clothes for. Some guys came up here. Most of the time I went to the costume department, which was somewhere in Queens, I believe. And other than that, I went out to Los Angeles a number of times.
Because I remember you telling me a story on the last episode, how you felt ill visiting Al Pacino. Was that for this film when you went out there?
No, that was the Gucci movie. I actually collapsed on the street out there and ended up in hospital. But I always joke about it. If ever you're going to collapse on the street, do it in Beverly Hills, because you get looked after really well there.
Yeah, especially if you're outside on Pacino's lawn. Couldn't hurt. I might try that trick myself. And so, did you have to do any research as well, Leonard, as well as Sandy and Christopher, because like they had references with looking at Hoffa and like old photos. Did you kind of join in with all of that research?
Oh, I don't do any research, but we really go into depth with the styling when they came up. As just to mention Christopher, I've worked with Christopher Peterson a number of times as well. So the three of them sat down and we went over, and they really articulated what they wanted these suits to look like. And then it's up to me to create this image that everybody wants. And when they come in, I sometimes switch the phone off. I don't answer the phone if it does go, or people come through the door, tell them come back. I have to concentrate 100%, because often I get one chance. I took an order for 4 suits for a new movie on Saturday, that I have to have 4 suits all completed without fittings for an actor I haven't seen and I haven't measured in 3 weeks' time.
Wow.
So I really have to work hard to make sure I get the styling right, and then I have to try and interpret the measurements that some guy took in France. So it's not always cut and dry.
And Leonard, I take it when you're working on a film, you're generally working off of costume department illustrations, right?
Correct. Sometimes illustrations and sometimes photographs. They bring in actual photographs of the person that they're trying to who's going to be portrayed in the movie.
Yeah, that was my question here. Like, because Jimmy Hoffa, obviously, there's a lot of real photos of him, and Frank Sheeran's daughter, I think, provided some pics of him, personal photos.
Yeah.
So, did you have many of those to work off of for these costumes?
Yes, we did. In fact, I may even still have it down there. They call it the Bible, and they bring it in, and you open up, and it has the look that you're trying to portray with the actor, plus the fabric and the day that it works. So that that's my Bible. I know what fabric, what actor, and the day that they needs to be on set to work.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the more buttoned up scenes is the dinner scene, because that seems to be like one of the turning points in the film, but also the one moment where they're all together pretty much in the same room. And I'm wondering, did you make any of the suits for the principal actors in that scene? Because all the suits, everybody's dressed to the nines. Even like De Niro, the graduation of his character is now at the tip of the spear with his suit. Did you do anything for those?
Well, I have to be honest, I don't remember that scene. You probably watched the movie quite recently to jog your mind. We've been busy with our daughter's engagement party over this weekend. I haven't looked at anything. I planned on it, but I didn't. So if you tell me the actors, I'll tell you. But the actors that I made clothes for. So if it's one of those, there is a very good chance I worked on them or made them for them.
I remember De Niro's suit in that. I want to say that it was black, but it might have just been the coloring, because it was black with a pattern on it. Wide peak lapels. I think even the cuffs, I think there was, kind of an irregularly shaped turn back on those cuffs there. I think it's a fascinating suit. I love all the detail to it. I think it's one of the more complex suits that he wears in the movie, but
It
looked like it had a pink pinstripe running down it. That was kind of like a...
I don't think it was pink. I did make something with a kind of fancy stripe, but it wasn't pink.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want it to be pink, Peter, it was.
And I'll edit that in post. I'll say it was pink, definitely.
And I like that you mentioned that moment too, because I feel like that we saw those suits from that scene in a lot of the posters and promotional artwork. So I feel like that kind of was identified by, the filmmakers themselves as kind of one of the highlights. One of the things to focus on that was really character defining.
Yeah. And was this quite a hard film for you in any way, Leonard? Because the amount of cast alone and the amount of budget and the running time, there must have been a lot of suits that you had to make.
It was a very, very hard movie, but it was really harder for Christopher and Sandy, because when you would go to the costume department, I would stand on a balcony and look down, at 50, 100, 200, 500 suits. I don't know how many. And each one had been fitted on, tried, tagged for the actor for the scene that they're in, the day that it works and everything else. And they had to get all the actors in. I mean, it was really, in fact, Christopher often said several times since then, they would never have been able to do the movie if it wasn't for the fact that I was so proficient at my job, because there were so many moving parts.
Yeah. I mean,
when you deliver a suit to them, because I know a lot of it was filmed around New York, so down the street from me actually, and the lights kept me up all night. But do you just deliver them and then they use them however they use them, or were some like sent back and you had to make very quick alterations?
No, sometimes we did alterations. Because sometimes when the actors are actually in a movie, their weights can fluctuate a little bit. DiCaprio will drop 10, 15 pounds during the course of a movie. Others may put it on, so there's a little bit of stress. So sometimes, and also human error can creep in when you're making something. To the best will in the world, human error comes creep in, and you know, you may make the waist of a trousers a little bit too big, a little bit too small. So we would fix those for them. There's a lot of to and fro.
Gotcha. Did they send it back, or you never had to actually go to the set?
No, I never went to set. Not on this. I've been to a lot of sets, but this movie I did not go on.
Oh.
Did you go to the screening for this one, Leonard?
No.
No.
I've only been to one screening, and that was for The Good Shepherd.
Oh yeah. Wow, that seems criminal.
Yeah, you know, I'm way down on the pecking order. If you look when you see the credits at the end, you know, the costume department is way down the bottom. And I've said several times, I think that the costume department people are underappreciated, because it's the subtleties of what they put together for the movie that create the whole thing. But for some reason, they're way down at the bottom of the pecking order.
Yeah, I mean, especially I think the power has shifted so much within the film industry that they used to have, like, you know, clothes by, and they would list the tailor or the designer or the brand. And nowadays it's gone so far the other way, where brands and designers have to pay to be
Correct.
in the movie, or even have their name at the bottom. It's
Well, you brought that up when we spoke before about the Gucci movie.
That's right, yeah.
I made all those suits, and then that's when I collapsed when I was out there. I still finished everything, but in between time, they got in touch with Xenia, who made only, I think, a couple of suits, and Adam Driver told me he only wore one of them. But at the end, it said, Bespoke clothing by, and they put Xenia there because Xenia did it for free and I did not.
Yeah, okay. So just feels a little bit underhand, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I know it's all down at Wolf of Wall Street. Some guy paid $1 million just to have the name of his company and have a walk-on part. It is all down to, you know, you see a movie and you see Dunkin' Donuts or a Coca-Cola cup placed in a certain spot. It is. It as far as the costume department have said, it kind of ruins what they're trying to do sometimes, because they're governed by the financial part of the movie, where they want to use a certain brand to because the brand pays for it. You know, Bond movies is a good example. I think in some of those movies, Daniel Craig looks atrocious in his clothes, but Tom Ford gets a lot of money gives a lot of money and gets a lot of money with his advertising campaign.
Yeah. When the productions come to town, like something like The Irishman, do you then have to enlist a lot of other helpers or tailors, seamstresses, or do you kind of deal with it?
No, I've got a team here who are good at what they can do, and if I brought somebody in untested, it will be a complete disaster. So we either make it here or I send it away to a cut, make, and trim house that I work very closely with.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it must be exciting when the emails come through. It's like, guys, it's time. We've got 100 odd suits to do in 2 weeks now. Go.
Yeah, it says, I may have told you the story about with with Russell Crowe, with one of his movies where he was finishing off Noah. Then he was going to go back to up to Australia and then come back for this movie, which name's gone from me for the moment. And then he decided you had 2 weeks, and then he was leaving. So we had to make everything. The whole system of everything. This suit works on such and such a day went out the window. I sent my son to London twice. I had a jacket maker out there to take clothes and pick them up. We had no time to ship them. He went down to Florida a couple of times. I had a jacket maker there at the time, just in order to make the dates.
Wow. Oh, you know you've arrived in life, don't you? When you've got someone flown in to measure your shoulder. And by the way, that shoulder's probably holding a daiquiri and the other one's got a cigarette on the go. So you're constantly moving. Yeah.
How do you find the clientele different from the US from
well, they're more business-like. When the Brits come in and they want to talk to you about a suit, we believe that they're taught at school to say, you know, that last suit you made me never did fit, but I'm going to give you one more try, but I want a good price. So out here they're more open. You know, if you do a good thing, they'll pay for it, and you move along. Are you back, Pete?
I'm back. Sorry, gents. Had some technical issues. I've moved down into the basement, into my little Bond cave, Leonard, and the signal's a bit up and down. But listen, whilst it's relatively good, I'm just going to say thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Ken. Thank you, Nick. We'll catch up, I'm sure, soon in the week and talk about something else film related. But in the meantime, until next time, thanks, Leonard. Take care of yourself.
You're welcome. All right. Bye, guys. Nice chatting with you.
Really enjoyed it.
Take care.